Hey, everybody, welcome back to our 2017 Cup Championship Memories series. This is part two of the two-part series, looking back on the 2017 Stanley Cup Championship won by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Three members of that team joining us once again to look back. We have Matt Cullen, Chris Kunitz, and Jake Guentzel. I'm Josh Getzoff. Appreciate everyone out there tuning in. Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy, and we obviously are looking forward to getting back into real hockey very soon. But guys, for the purpose of this conversation, going back in time, and when we last spoke, you guys had won your first two games of the series on home ice, going up 2-0 on the Nashville Predators. Then the series shifted to Nashville. And we talked a little bit about the energy and the enthusiasm, I guess, that the Predators had built down there in Tennessee in this run to the final. But just curious, and Cully, I guess we can kind of start with you and work our way down the line for the three of you and your opinions. What was it like going into Nashville for those games? Did it meet the expectations? Did it exceed what you were expecting? What were those games like as far as the atmosphere?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, you'd heard a lot about it throughout the playoffs, and obviously watching games, while we're on the road throughout the playoffs as we're coming towards the finals. It was pretty obvious they had something special going. Their fans were, well behind them. The whole town was behind them, and obviously being a fun town and having all the bars right down from the rink, it brought a lot of energy to the building. So I think probably for all of us, it was about what we expected. It was fun. It was a great atmosphere. It was electric in the building. You guys could speak to that. It was wild. So, and obviously that was a team that was just really, really good all year long, but especially in the playoffs at home. So we knew it'd be a handful.
Yeah, I think when they're at home, they were a different team. I think they fed off that environment, better than most. I think we were maybe a little surprised at how loud it was and how much maybe it was like a SEC college football town and kind of crazy like that. But we knew we were going to get the best of what they were going to be able to throw at us. And, unfortunately, those games didn't go as well. But I think we learned a lot being in there and being in that environment. And
yeah, I think it was just a fun time to play. Those are the games you want to play in as a player. And obviously the crowd, the catfish, the national anthem, you just know that it's going to be a special time down there. So definitely not how we wanted, but it was a good ending.
You guys lose game 3, 5-1, game 4, 4-1. As you mentioned, the games didn't go your way down there. I have to ask, though, as things shifted back to Pittsburgh, you guys were able to get back in control of the series. And from that perspective, the first 4 or 5 games of the series, how much do you think home ice really played a factor? Or was it something the Predators did differently in games 3 and 4? Or was it just the fact that they were on home ice and a different team in that situation? And when you guys were back in Pittsburgh, you were a different team. Is there anything more to it than that?
I think a lot of home ice has to do with some of your matchups. Them having such a good decor and wanting to match up against Jake and Sid and Gino really helped out for them. So it kind of put us on our heels a little bit, not being able to put guys out and dictating when guys can go out on the ice. It kind of affects the flow of the game, and I think that probably factored into it a little bit into games 3 and 4. But they obviously played a different brand of hockey and fed behind their crowd too.
How'd you guys feel coming back home for game number 5? Because I mentioned those two scores were not very close in Nashville. I'm sure they felt like they were back in the series. Maybe it swung the pendulum in their favor. But you did come back home, and you really exploded in that game. I think Schultz scored 90 seconds in on a power play, kind of opened the floodgates to a 3-goal first period. Did you feel that coming? Was there reason to believe in your room that kind of a response and a rebound was going to happen in game 5?
Yeah, I think we felt pretty good coming home. That was maybe one of those situations where your playoff experience came in. We as a group had been through a lot and over the last couple of years. So coming home, we knew okay, we're starting over. It's a best of 3 series, and we also had played some really good hockey at home. So being home for us was a big deal. And like Cooney talked about, the matchups, I think was a really big deal. Coming home, being able to have that last change and get who you want out against who they have. So I thought that was a big deal, but it was just one of those things where your back's against the wall a little bit. You're down to first team to win 2 games, and I think we were able to get that mindset kind of in place, and we came out ready to play.
The crowd was into it, and just the way we started, I think we got in the power play and Schultz scored, and from there the floodgates kind of opened. So we definitely used that energy in our home ice.
And I just think that when you have the home ice, you're always in control of the series until somebody wins on the road. And so, like Cully said, it was a 3-game series, but we still had 2 games if we were going to go to a game 7 at home, and that kind of factors into putting a little more emphasis on winning that home game. I think we did that when we were at home for sure.
You guys were up 3-0 after that first period. As we mentioned, the Schultz goal. Brian Rust, Genny Malkin also found the back of the net. And then the second period starts in that Game 5, and UC Saros comes in goal for Nashville. Second time in as many games in Pittsburgh that you guys had chased Pecorine from a game. Did you feel like at that point that maybe you were in his head a bit, especially in those games in Pittsburgh, as you mentioned, maybe having a little bit of a leverage on home ice?
Well, I think I've heard, that he maybe had some struggles in Pittsburgh, and I think we were just trying to get as many shots as we can and see what could happen, because obviously he has some struggles in Pittsburgh. So we were just trying to get pucks on net, and obviously we were pretty lucky in that one.
Yeah, I think you're always happy, regardless of the situation in the playoffs, and you see them bring their backup goalie, and that's always a good thing. I mean, bottom line, like Pekka's a great goalie, and you just obviously if there's any mental advantage that you can get, and obviously it affects the goalie when he gets pulled. So good, we were happy to see it. Obviously, you get the good lead at home, and you see them change the goalie. Well, yeah, that's a good thing. We were happy with that.
Yeah, you're trying to affect their team any way you can, and when they pull a goalie, that's going to affect their team. Sometimes it'll jumpstart them, but every time Jake would come down and score on him, you could definitely see his head hang a little. So it was good that he kept scoring on these guys.
Yeah, he had their number throughout the entire playoffs, and definitely in that Stanley Cup final. We mentioned, so you guys yank Pecorine from the game. UC Saros comes in the second period, and then promptly 3 more goals are scored on him as you build the lead to 6-0. I want to talk about the 6 of those 6 goals. Ron Hainsey, we talked about him a little bit last time, a little coast-to-coast action, if you remember, on that 6th goal. What was it like watching that one develop? If I recall correctly, James Neal tried to hit him in the beginning, kind of dodged that bullet, and then worked a little give and go with Evgeny Malkin, and all of a sudden it's 6-0, and he's capping it all off.
I think a lot of fans were checking their programs after that one to see who that was. I think it was a great goal. I mean, I remember watching it here just recently just to kind of refresh my memory, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I don't necessarily think that was a prototypical Ron Hainsey goal. It was beautiful, like up and down the ice and a little tap in on the back door. It was great. But, he was just a guy that he played so well, and he was such an addition. I think we talked about it last time, but his ability just to kind of step up and not be fazed by the pressure in his first playoff experience, it was pretty cool to see. And I know all of us on the bench, it was one of those goals that everybody loves to see, because he's one of those guys that doesn't score a lot, but it was cool to see him have that moment.
Yeah, I think just being on the bench and being able to see a guy capitalize on something like that, everything's going for your team, and you're feeling, good about yourselves. Maybe it's not the superstar who's scoring it, but that'll give us good flow going into the next game when we really need to try and close out a series.
I think it's interesting, too, because you talk back looking at Game 1, and Cullen, I know you mentioned this specifically, that you guys went up 3-0 on the Predators and almost kind of wanted the game to end with how things had gone so well for you early on. Fast forward to Game 5, you go up 3-0, but then you keep piling it on even after they switch goalies in the second period. What does that say about the mindset change that is required throughout these kind of series, but also how you guys were able to raise your game in that kind of a moment and understand the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that was fresh in our mind when you get that lead. It was only a few nights earlier where we gave it up. So I think probably having that, very recent experience to draw on, the guys did a good job of keeping their foot on the gas. And, it's like, it's what I said before. It's always hard. You get that lead, you literally just want to hang on to it and shut it down and speed the clock up and get out of there with a win, because that's the only thing you're worried about. But having that experience earlier in the series probably was good for us in that regard, just to remind us to keep your foot on the gas and keep going. And in this case, we did.
So you win Game 5 by a final score of 6-0. Matt Murray, a guy who I think had come under the spotlight for the wrong reasons in the 2 games in Nashville after allowing 8 goals in those 2 games, he gets the shutout. You guys go up 3-2. I wanted to ask, and I guess we can hear from all 3 of you on this one. Obviously a satisfying win to win 6-0 in a game where the series is tied 2-2, to move yourselves within 1 win of winning the Stanley Cup once again. But how do you balance the emotion of being satisfied with that victory, but not being satisfied with the overall product, and knowing you got to go back down to Nashville and hopefully get the job done in the following game?
I just think anytime you can take, a game that you could win a Stanley Cup and throw it into one game, and knowing that you kind of have a fallback game if you don't win that one, you get a Game 7 at home. But, for us to be able to come out and play the exact way we want, learn from what we learned in Games 3 and 4, and and ended up being a game that is really kind of even back and forth. Maybe a goal called off for them and a couple posts here or there. Both goalies are playing great, and it takes it all the way down into the third period. And I think our team, enjoyed and thrived in that position, and we were kind of, almost with our backs against the wall, but knowing that we could falter and still have a game at home, that we can go out and play our best game and still play with that confidence that we needed as a group. And that was something, Murr instilled in us with the shutout in game 5 and then going into game 6 and still being 0-0. That plays on the other team not having scored a goal in, almost 120 minutes of hockey.
Speaking of game 6, the year before you guys go into the Shark Tank, a place that you had won in the series, and then obviously got the job done in game number 6 in San Jose. This year, you had not won, as we mentioned in those 2 games prior against Nashville, but you have to go back in there, win a game. And Cooney, you kind of hinted at some of the aspects of that game. It's a tight contest. Nashville is a goal waved off. It's a goaltender's duel, I think it's fair to say. What are some of your recollections from the first couple periods of that game? Because both teams had some glorious chances to score. Pekka Rinne and Matt Murray were both really good. And then obviously it was such a tight contest coming into the third frame.
I just remember some, killing off penalties, and those are some of the things that really, you need a big save by your goalie, but also guys blocking shots like, Bones obviously earlier and in the series, but just being able to kill off their power play in their building kind of takes the crowd out of it, makes everyone else a little bit nervous. And we knew we were always going to be able to get chances and get things around them as in Pekka, but I think the penalty kills, those things are always important that kind of get overlooked, but they really rally a team when you can kill those off when you're shorthanded.
And Cooney and Cullen, you guys were part of that penalty kill that you mentioned right there. 5-on-3 for 32 seconds in the third period after Trevor Daley and Ole Mato went to the box. What's the mindset there? I mean, obviously, the situation. It doesn't need to be painted any clearer in a scoreless game with them going on a 5-on-3 in the third period. But how do you kind of hold everything together? Cully, I know you were out there in that 5-on-3. Cooney, you came out when it was a 5-on-4, but all in that same sequence to try to keep the Predators off the board.
Yeah, I mean, those are high intense moments, but those are kind of what you get ready for and prepare for. You do it all season long, and as a penalty kill group, that those are sort of the big moments that you got to step up and make a difference. And yeah, I mean, in general, the whole feel was like going into that rink that night, it was going to be the toughest game of the series, right? The last game is always the toughest one, so we knew there would be moments where it would be, obviously really tough, and so you get down to a 0-0 game late in the game. Everybody knows they have to have their best, and that's usually when we always brought our best as a group, I think. And this was a good opportunity for the penalty kill to step up, and then after that, the rest of the group just kind of took over.
Do you guys know in that game which Penguin had the most time on ice in game number 6?
Cully.
Matt Cullen, 40 years old, not too bad in game number 6, 19 minutes and 42 seconds. Do you remember anything about that, Cully? It seemed like you were out there a lot, especially late in the game.
Yeah, no, I don't. I remember being really tired after the game, thinking, I wonder why I'm so tired. And then I learned later on, but yeah, it was funny. It was a funny game that way, but obviously with Bones being out after blocking some shots, it was sort of one of those situations where guys got to step in and play more. And so yeah, it was fun.
So you're still scoreless late in that game. 1:35 left. Patrick Hornquist obviously scores in such a poetic moment as he scores against the team that drafted him, that traded him to Pittsburgh, gives you guys the lead. Take me through what you were feeling in that moment. I think Cooney and Cully were on the ice, if I remember correctly, on the bench, but all three of you, as you see the puck go in the net, how are you kind of responding emotionally in that exact moment?
I didn't actually get to see it go in. I had started with the puck, made a pass, and then I was going for a change. So I got one step onto the bench, and everyone started going crazy. So I knew we scored, but I didn't know how it went in or who scored. But yeah, I remember seeing Cully go in there and celebrate. So I know he definitely had a better perspective of the goal going in than I did.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was just. It was almost the same feeling as scoring an overtime goal, right? Watching Horny put that in, just because you knew it was so late in the game and it had been so tight. And, so it was it was just like hard to describe that feeling. Similar to when Cooney scored his big goal, honestly. But it was cool. Like it couldn't have happened to a better guy. Horny, obviously starting in Nashville and playing a lot of his career in Nashville. I know that was huge for him, but I think a lot of us knew how much he had played through that year. I mean, he had the broken finger, and it wasn't just a broken finger. It was like displace broken, so it was moving around. It was the grossest thing. But I mean, for a guy to be able to play through that every game, and he played through it for a lot of the playoffs too. It wasn't just a couple games, so it was pretty cool to see a guy go through all that and then get rewarded with that big goal. But I mean, there's nobody better in that little tight area around the net, so it wasn't shocking that Horny was the guy that got that one. And in a game like that, where it's just a grind and a battle, he was the guy I guess you could probably have picked to have a chance to score that winner. But it was awesome. It was a great feeling, and I remember just being so happy for Horny.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective on the bench, it was pretty cool to see just the excitement and the group hug that we had on the bench with everyone. I mean, just a cool moment for all of us to have that. We score with a minute left, and it's not done yet, but it's definitely a good feeling.
Yeah, you guys go from thinking you're probably, or maybe most likely, going to head to overtime to all of a sudden up 1-0, about 90 seconds to go. Then Carl Hagelin gets the empty netter. You go up 2-0. Then it's pretty much on lock at that point. So let's jump ahead to that final buzzer going off. I know that for both Cullen and Cooney, you guys had been in that moment before. Jake, you had never been there, and it was the cap off of a pretty crazy couple of months for you personally. But when you guys realized the moment there that you'd won the Stanley Cup, I guess first from just the perspective of winning the cup and getting back to the top, what that was like, but then also when were you able to process that you'd done it back to back and realize just how rare of a feat that was?
I guess from my perspective, we had such a good group there for, a couple years that we just really enjoyed going to the rink every day. And yeah, maybe we didn't get the outcomes that we wanted all the time, but it was something that it was enjoyable to go to work. And that was kind of, that obviously peaked when you win a Stanley Cup, but then to go do it again, it's kind of like, 2 years or 24 months of hockey that you were looking forward to going there every day. And that you weren't going to get another chance after we won, but it was still that journey and path together. That's why it made it such a special group of guys to be able to keep coming into that area. And the core, the nucleus of the team, being able to bring guys in and let them thrive in their situations. There's probably no better time in my career to go back to back, but to be able to share all that moments for those 24 months or whatever with so many players. I think that's the thing I was thinking of when I was coming off the bench. Like, wow, we did this, but now it's over, and that's not the best thing. But it was really enjoyable to be able to wake up and go to the rink every day. That was the best part about it.
Yeah, it was a fun year, and it's funny because that kind of hits you at the moment, when you jump over the boards or whatever, and you're celebrating it. Those are the things that kind of come back to you the most. They're just how much fun you had as a group, and it probably is one of those times where you realize, I guess you always believe that you're part of something special, but then when you finally do that, you kind of get a minute to say, man, this is obviously pretty unique, but you kind of get a feeling of realizing how lucky you are to be a part of all that. And Cooney's right. Like we had a lot of fun. I mean, it was such a fun group to be a part of, and you had a little bit of a target on your back all year because we won the year before, and we knew it would be a challenge. And so it was really extra rewarding, I think, jumping over the boards with that win, just knowing that nobody thought you could do it, and just knowing how we did it and had a lot of fun doing it. For Cooney being number 4, he probably was, not as excited, probably yawning a little bit, but for the rest of us, hey, Jake, It was a pretty cool deal.
Oh yeah, because number 3 is so tough. Let's really throw it around here. Poor Jake, just with fun. Come on, they're all the best feeling ever. That.
It's true though, but it's true. None of them are different. And you know more than anybody, but they're all the same as far as how exciting it is. It doesn't change.
So what was number 1 like for you, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, that whole year was kind of a blur for me. I mean, now that I think about jumping over the boards, I don't really remember much. Just pure excitement. I mean, you don't expect that to happen, especially in your first year. And I mean, it was just a pretty cool moment. You just know you're going to celebrate the Stanley Cup, and it's one of the hardest trophies in sports to win. So definitely a dream come true for that to happen that year.
Do you bring it back to Pittsburgh? Massive parade and celebration, going through that again for Chris and Matt. Obviously, you've done that a couple times. That was a pretty cool experience, I'm sure. Jake, first time. Take me through that whole experience, and then, what did you guys do with your days with the Cup that year? What were your plans when you got it, if you remember, back in 2007?
I mean, the parade for me was nuts. I mean, the amount of people there, and how nice of a day it was. I mean, just how fun it was with the fans, and those days are you never know how many you're to get, so you got to take advantage of it as much as you can. And I mean, that was truly one of the best days of my life, having that parade there.
What do you guys remember from the parade, Chris and Matt?
Yeah, I remember just being in all the parades in Pittsburgh. It was overwhelming every time you started the parade and you go down the street and you'd see the people, 10, 15 people deep, everyone hanging outside the parkades, everyone standing on lampposts, wherever they were. It's an unbelievable experience. And then to be in the middle of it and just, I think the whole time you're just going side to side, looking at all the excitement and all the people. Everyone knows Pittsburgh's a great sports town, and it truly is a special place to play and win because the people actually care about you. Didn't matter if you're leaving your subdivision or where you were, people are always, rooting you on and rooting the best for you. So to go there and be able to celebrate that with all the fans is, something I think of every time I think of Pittsburgh and how enjoyable it definitely was.
Yeah, I agree. The parades are outrageous. Like, I'll never forget those. Those are probably the moments that stand out the most as far as like cup celebration. Unbelievable. Like, with all the people, all the fans like jammed in there between the buildings, and it's so intense and it's so loud. There's people hanging off of the parking structures, and I'll never forget those. I mean, the first one, I couldn't believe it. And then the second one, you're thinking, well, it can't be as good, but sure enough, man, it felt like there was more people the second time. So those are unbelievable moments. Those parades were just crazy. The amount of people that pack in the entire route of the parade, it was unbelievable.
You guys definitely gave them a moment, a memory that they will never forget. 2017 Stanley Cup champions. Guys, can't thank you enough for taking the time to reflect with me. I hope you all stay healthy, do well, and looking forward to, in some capacity, seeing you all at the back of the rink very soon. Thanks again for taking the time, guys.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
See you guys.
For Matt Cullen, Chris Kunitz, Jake Guentzel, I'm Josh Getzoff. This has been the 2017 Stanley Cup Championship Memories, and we'll catch you next time right here on PittsburghPenguins.com.